in this lesson, we'll take a look at how we can start to change the way that our symmetry works as we go about building our topology. So we jump in here to Topogun, and this is 07 begin, and you can see that we just have this alien head, and it's a little bit asymmetrical. You can see the corner of the eyes are a little bit off, the mouth is a little bit off as far as the symmetry goes. So as we go in here and start creating our topology, we won't want it to be exactly symmetrical, but want it to be symmetrical but still following along with the shapes that we have here, which are really asymmetrical. And so there are some ways that we can accommodate this. So let's take a look at some of the ways we can modify our symmetry planes. So going into our symmetry options, you can see our initial plane here is this YZ. You can also go in and duplicate any of the default planes. So you could duplicate this, you could rename it to something else. Okay, you can move it around based on the values here. We can also use a point. So for instance, if we have a point over here that we've placed and we've made that point active and go back into our symmetry options with our temp plane selected, we could say move to, and I will move that plane over to where that point is. So that's kind of nice. You can now have symmetry over here on this side. Or we can say we want it to look at. Let me go ahead and do that, and let's create a new one, duplicate, and then we want it to look at that, and so it's actually down here. Let's actually make a copy based on the local. Okay, so we'll duplicate that. Now we want to say look at, and so you can see it's sort of now positioned itself back here sort of perpendicular, looking at that point based on the normal of that point. Okay, so you can see the point up here, you can see that pointing straight at it. So there are different ways to modify the position of the symmetry, but for this lesson I really want to concentrate on the symmetry warps. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, go back to our YZ, and let's make a duplicate. Alright, so what we have here now is areas of this model are not exactly symmetrical. So when I'm over here creating topology for the corner of this eye, for instance, it's actually not in the exact same position on this side. Same thing here. As I'm down here at the corner of the mouth, it's not exactly at the same position. You can see here I'm up at the top of the mouth. On the left side, I'm down at the bottom of the mouth. So it's not positioned exactly the same. What we can do is create these sort of areas of influence or in different parts of our model that let us know that when we get inside of that area, there's sort of a warping that takes place of the symmetry so that things are still lined up. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So with our symmetry warps here, you can see we can go ahead and create, and then we'll just click and drag at a point. So let's say the corner of the mouth. So I'm looking over here on the right side. I'll click and drag right on the corner of the mouth, and I'll drag out a line of influence or a region of influence here. So the warping is going to happen inside that orange area, and you can see there's a bit of a fall off which can be manipulated here. So what we want to do is move this red dot to the spot where we want to set our symmetry. This is the corner of the mouth, let's say. And then we want to come over here and move our blue dot to the corresponding point on this side. So you can see here, it's going to be right over here. Okay? So now, when we are sculpting here, doing our topology, when we go to the corner of the mouth, even though it's not exactly symmetrical, when we go over to this area, you can see that I'm actually selecting the corner of that mouth over on the other side. Okay, you can go ahead and create another one. So we'll go to create, and let's create one here up for the eye. So we'll go ahead and click and drag that out. We've got the red dot right at the corner of that eye, right under that wrinkle. So I want to move this blue dot up into the same area. So now when we move our cursor over here, you can see it staying within that area. And you can see as it leaves that region, when the area is more symmetrical, it seamlessly blends in with that. Okay, now let's do the sort of the top of the mouth. So go under symmetry options, go to create, and let's create sort of an area right in here of influence. So we've got the red dot down at the base of the lip here, and I'll move the blue dot up to the base of the lip right in there. Okay, go ahead and say done. So now you can see as we come in here, I'm on the lip here, and symmetrically, if it was directly across the axis, it would be in the center of the mouth, but as it is with that warp, it's actually on the right spot on the lip on the other side. Now you can see as it leaves that region of influence, it kind of pops back down. So right over here, we might want to add another region of influence. So we could create something else over on this side. We've got a red dot, kind of move our blue dot up in there. And again, you can change the fall off for this region. You can see increasing the influence there. Okay, so now it's a little bit better, kind of goes along. You can see there's an area right in here where there's not a lot of influence, but enough to get the job done here. Okay, so even if you have something that's asymmetrical, you can modify your symmetry planes with symmetry warps to take that into account and create those sort of areas of distortion and warping that will enable you to create topology that is basically symmetrical in those areas, even if the mesh itself is not completely symmetrical. So I'd make sure to check that out under symmetry options. Those are going to be your symmetry warps. And again, you can rename those, you can reset them, delete them, and so forth. Okay? All right, so those are symmetry warps, which you can take advantage of. The last thing that I want to talk about is using the morpher. So it's a really nice way to do topology on a mesh and then modify the reference mesh and have that topology be able to follow along and modify itself to fit the new high-res mesh that you have. So we'll take a look at that in the next lesson.